Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. When a reclusive tech expert returns home to find fake HOA inspectors breaking into his off-grid garage, a quiet property dispute ignites into a full-blown cyber war, spying, sabotage, and courtroom drama. In this neighborhood, the real danger wears a smile. I wasn't gone more than 30 minutes, maybe 35, tops. All I needed was a compression fitting, a roll of fiber conduit, and a decent espresso from the only cafe in town that didn't taste like burnt plastic. When I rolled back up the gravel drive, I expected to see my usual slice of peace, 10 acres of wind, pine, and silence. What I didn't expect was to see 3 men, grown, confused-looking men, halfway through what can only be described as the most pathetic attempt to break into a garage since YouTube prank channels became a thing. They were dressed like someone's bad idea of official fluorescent green safety vests, one of which still had the price tag flapping near the hem. One guy wore a white construction helmet, the kind you get at hardware stores next to the toy tool sets. Another had a laminated HOA badge swinging from his neck, except it wasn't laminated, it was just a printed name tag inside a Ziploc bag. And the third, a lanky idiot with a phone held up like a director on a cheap indie shoot, was barking stage directions. More to the left. No, use your back. Karen wants this on video in case he tries something. My truck's tires crunched over the gravel, but they didn't even turn. It took me shifting into park and stepping out with a chuckle before one of them noticed me. You guys from Comedy Central? Or is this a community theater production? The helmeted one dropped his crowbar. The badge guy straightened like he'd just been caught urinating on a church wall. Phone guy finally turned to me, and for a moment looked like he was going to pretend I wasn't standing 20 feet away. Sir, the badge mumbler said, this is a routine inspection for unauthorized construction materials. You weren't present to give access, and the garage may fall within the HOA's extended jurisdiction under Pine Shadow Zoning Phase 3. Ah, I said, pulling my phone out and pressing record. Extended jurisdiction. That old chestnut. I kept my tone light, but I was already cataloging everything. Their entry angle, the broken padlock on the side gate, the pried back panel on the garage door, the cheap Walmart toolkit by their feet, and the fact that they had no clue Emotion Alert had already activated the drone camera mounted on the west gable. It was overhead now, silent, watching. Gentlemen, I said, you have approximately 15 seconds to explain why you're trying to break into my private, off-grid, not HOA-affiliated garage before I stop playing nice. The helmet guy, to his credit, tried to go for his belt. Not a smart move. I didn't need a taser or even a weapon, just leverage, weight, and the fact that I'd spent 9 years in rapid deployment law enforcement before starting my tech company. The helmet bounced off first. Then badge guy took a gentle little trip into the gravel. Phone guy started running, made it 2 steps, and tripped over a shovel someone had left leaning against my woodshed. In under a minute, they were zip-tied and laid out neatly in the shade like firewood, faces pressed to pine needles, moaning something about miscommunication. I'd say so, I muttered, stepping back and calling the sheriff. Yeah, Sheriff, it's Trent. I've got 3 jackasses trying to break into my workshop. No weapons drawn, not by me anyway. Phone guy started blubbering something about authorization and Karen. Always Karen. There's always a Karen. I took my time setting up a wide-angle shot from my porch cam, walked back over, and sat down on a cooler. The drone buzzed gently overhead. I watched one of them twitch and tried not to laugh. You know, I said conversationally, this garage holds about 6 figures worth of server-grade hardware, clean room tools, lithium battery reserves, and private surveillance backups. If one of you had so much as leaned on the wrong shelf, the insurance claim alone would have eaten your HOA's budget for a decade. Phone guy whimpered. Badge boy finally found his voice. We were just following HOA inspection protocol. Karen said this was authorized. She said this plot was supposed to be part of the community since the zoning plan back in 2019. I grinned. Yeah, that would be cute if it were true. By the time the sheriff rolled up, sirens off but lights flashing, I'd already transferred the drone footage to a secure drive, packaged stills, and printed the relevant land deeds. I handed it over like a man offering a birthday gift. Sheriff Bell took one look at the 3 men inside. Trent, he said, you want me to guess. HOA inspection, I said. I caught a mid-break-in. They mentioned Karen by name. The sheriff rubbed his temples. God help us all. While the deputies took statements and loaded the would-be vigilantes into their cruiser, I noticed a familiar voice yelling from beyond the oaks. High heels on gravel, designer sunglasses, the distinct aura of someone who's never been told no in her life. Karen Litton arrived 10 minutes too late and 3 years too entitled. Karen Litton didn't walk so much as descend onto my property like a monarch arriving to inspect her peasants. The sheriff hadn't even finished loading the last of her inspectors into the cruiser when she stormed into view, heels stabbing my gravel like she was trying to murder it. Her voice was already at full volume long before she got close enough for me to smell the perfume cloud, something expensive that somehow still managed to smell like aggression. "Sheriff Bell," she shouted, holding up a thick folder as if it were the 10 Commandments. "You need to stop this arrest immediately." These men were authorized personnel conducting an official HOA inspection, and you are interfering with community governance. Bell gave me a sideways glance. I could tell he was counting down from 10 in his head. "Mrs. Litton," he said, "these men were caught breaking into a private structure on land that is not part of Pine Shadows Village." Her face twitched. "That's incorrect." She snapped open the folder and jabbed at a map that looked suspiciously like it had been printed on an inkjet an hour ago. "According to zoning proposals from 2019, this parcel should have been integrated into our HOA boundaries. We have long-standing expectations." "Karen," I said, stepping closer, "you can't govern an area because a map says you wish it belonged to you. That's not zoning, that's colonialism." She spun to me, lips drawn tight. This isn't your concern. It's literally my property." She ignored that entirely, turning back to the sheriff. "These men acted in good faith. They were attempting to ensure compliance with community safety ordinances. We received several reports that Mr. West keeps hazardous, possibly explosive materials in his garage. We cannot allow that." I laughed, because it was either that or start yelling. "Explosive materials?" "Karen, it's fire suppression hardware and server batteries. You know, the same stuff that keeps your precious HOA clubhouse from burning to the ground." The tallest of the zip-tied intruders, now being maneuvered into the cruiser, piped up weakly. She told us to check for violations before he moved. Anything. Said she'd handle any fallout." Karen's head whipped toward him like a striking hawk. "You weren't supposed to speak. And you certainly weren't supposed to lie to law enforcement." "Oh, sweetheart," I said, leaning my elbow on my truck, "you might want to stop before you dig any deeper. That pit is at, what, 6 feet? 7? She tried to rally. "Mr. West has been a disruptive presence since moving here. His equipment is unsightly. His structure doesn't match the architectural harmony of the community. His security systems are intrusive. We have received numerous resident complaints." "And yet," Sheriff Bell said slowly, "none of those residents have ever contacted my office. Not once." Karen's lips parted, hunting for words that didn't exist. I pulled my folder from the truck and handed it to Bell. "Sheriff, here's the county deed, the land survey, the official jurisdiction map, and the email from the zoning board confirming I'm not under HOA enforcement." "Thought you might want these." Bell flipped through the documents, nodding. "Everything checks out." Karen's confidence cracked. I saw it. The split-second panic. The realization that her authority wasn't just being questioned, it was evaporating. "This isn't over," she whispered, but loud enough for all of us to hear. "This community will not be endangered by rogue individuals who refuse to comply with standards. I will be filing a formal complaint." I tapped my phone. "Good, because I'm filing one too." She blinked. "Against whom?" "You," I said matter-of-factly, "for coordinating an illegal break-in, defamation, and impersonation of regulatory authority. And since your little commandos mentioned you by name, I'm sure the sheriff will enjoy adding conspiracy to the list." Bell didn't say anything, but he also didn't disagree. The cruiser doors slammed shut. The men who'd tried to break into my garage sat inside, looking like deflated parade balloons. Karen stood stiff as a corpse in a business suit, clutching her useless folder. "I hope you're ready for a very long legal process," she hissed. "Karen," I said gently, "I run a company that handles infrastructure compliance for a living. Legal process is my cardio." Sheriff Bell cleared his throat. "Ms. Litton, unless you have something productive to add, I'm going to recommend you leave Mr. West's property." She opened her mouth, closed it, and stormed off toward her Lexus with the fury of a disappointed tornado. As she peeled out of my driveway, absolutely exceeding the speed limit, I couldn't help but smile. Not because I'd won anything. Not yet. But because the look on her face told me exactly what was coming. This wasn't the end. This was the moment she decided to escalate, and people like Karen never escalate quietly. I wasn't expecting the courtroom to be packed. I figured it'd be a dull Tuesday morning hearing with bored clerks and a half-asleep judge. Instead, I walked into a room humming with tension. Rows of HOA members, journalists from the local paper, even a couple of Karen's signature concerned citizen followers, all lined up like they were attending a public hanging, just not sure whose. I took my seat next to my attorney, Melinda Crowley, a woman whose poker face could melt titanium, and laid out the files we'd prepared. Everything was tabbed, color-coded, cross-referenced, and time-stamped. I didn't just want to win. I wanted the judge to enjoy ruling in our favor. Karen walked in 10 minutes late, flanked by a clean-shaven man in a tailored navy suit and a haircut that screamed, "I bill by the quarter hour." He looked smug. She looked like she'd just reapplied her lip gloss with a trowel. I nodded at her. She didn't nod back. The judge, a weathered, sharp-eyed woman named Langford, called the room to order. HOA's lawyer opened with what sounded like a monologue from a courtroom soap opera. "Your Honor," he began, "we are here today not simply to adjudicate a property boundary misunderstanding, but to preserve public safety. My clients had strong, repeated concerns that Mr. West's structure, a so-called garage, may contain hazardous materials that could endanger the community. Given the lack of transparency and his refusal to cooperate with our requests, we had no choice but to act." Melinda didn't even blink. "Your Honor, we'd like to begin by establishing that Mr. West's property lies entirely outside the jurisdiction of the Pine Shadows Village HOA. I have here certified zoning documents, tax records, and an official statement from the county assessor confirming this fact." The judge nodded. "Proceed." As the evidence was presented, Karen's lawyer tried pivoting. Even if the property lies outside the current map, he argued, the intent of the 2019 rezoning proposal clearly envisioned eventual integration. Our client operated under the belief that this expansion was active. Melinda raised a brow. "Intent does not override jurisdiction, Your Honor, and I believe Mr. West has some additional material the court should review." I stood up and approached the screen. "What you're about to see," I said, "was recorded from a drone camera that activates any time motion is detected past the interior gate. The footage is synced to time logs and stored off-site." The video played. 3 men on my land, 2 trying to force open the garage while the third filmed with his phone, laughing. The audio was clear. "If Karen finds out we didn't finish before he gets back, she'll have our asses. Just make it look like we're inspecting something." I turned to the judge. "My equipment isn't just expensive, it's licensed. These," I said, holding up a packet of laminated forms, "are my certifications, federal, state, and county, for storage of lithium-ion backup units, fire suppression systems, and encrypted servers. This is my business's backup node. I run critical infrastructure support, and these idiots tried to break into it with a crowbar and zero authority." Karen's lawyer attempted one final lunge. "But the HOA received anonymous reports. We had to act." Melinda stepped in smoothly. "Your Honor, those anonymous reports have never been produced. There's no record of them. And more importantly, no justification for a civilian organization to attempt forced entry onto private property under any pretense. This wasn't a safety check. It was a power play." Judge Langford adjusted her glasses and stared down at Karen. "Ms. Litton, did you instruct these individuals to enter Mr. West's property?" Karen hesitated. I simply passed along concerns. They took initiative. The initiative that included breaking a lock, attempting to enter a structure, and bringing a taser onto someone's land. I had no idea." "Spare me," the judge said flatly. She turned back to the room. "I find that the Pine Shadows Village Homeowners Association and Ms. Karen Litton personally acted outside their authority, engaged in unlawful trespass, and coordinated an unauthorized intrusion under false pretenses." Karen's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. She sat frozen. "The court hereby orders the HOA to pay Mr. West $85,000 in compensatory damages. Ms. Litton is also instructed to issue a formal, notarized apology to Mr. West to be published in the HOA newsletter and posted to the official Pine Shadows website for no less than 60 days. There was a collective inhale from the gallery. I didn't smile. I didn't smirk. I just met Karen's eyes as the gavel came down. She didn't look furious. She looked humiliated, And that was far more dangerous. I should have known Karen wouldn't take her public defeat lying down. For a couple of weeks after the hearing, everything was quiet, almost suspiciously so. I'd expected at least one more angry email, or maybe a cease and desist written in crayon, but instead, Karen vanished from the HOA spotlight. No newsletters, no new ordinances, just silence, which, coming from her, was the most ominous thing possible. The first sign came when a white SUV I didn't recognize parked on the road near my southern fence line. Two people got out, took photos of my solar panel array with zoom lenses, then left. No knock on the door, no clipboard, no interaction, just surveillance. 2 days later, I got an official letter from the Colorado Department of Environmental Health. According to the envelope, someone had reported me for potential non-compliant emissions from industrial-grade equipment. There was mention of chemical runoff and solar array energy feedback irregularities. It was written in bureaucratic nonsense, but the message was clear. Someone was trying to bury me in technical violations. The inspector who arrived was a polite woman in her 50s, clearly confused about what she'd been sent to investigate. I walked her through my setup. Solar batteries, inverters, gray water recovery, everything built to code. She left satisfied, muttering something about wasting everyone's time. The next week, it escalated. First came the letters. Dozens of them dropped into mailboxes throughout the community. Each one printed in a neutral serif font with grainy photos of my property and the phrase, "Do you know what's being stored in your neighborhood?" There were insinuations, unlicensed chemicals, potential explosives, tactical equipment. The author claimed to be a concerned local resident, but included no name, no contact info, just a burner Gmail and a website URL that led to a dead WordPress blog with a single blurry image of my workshop at night. Then came the drone. Not mine. This one was smaller, noisier, and operated clumsily. I spotted it one morning circling above my western field line, dipping low over my roof. When I sent my own drone up to intercept, it bugged out fast, veering south until it was out of range. Whoever was flying it had no idea how to avoid geofencing. I traced the signal back to a residential IP in Pine Shadows Village. I started logging everything. Every drone sighting, every unknown vehicle, every flyer that showed up in a neighbor's mailbox. I bought a higher resolution thermal camera for the garage corner and added motion-activated floodlights along the tree line. It wasn't paranoia, it was pattern recognition. Someone was building a narrative, and I had a pretty good guess who. Then came the footage. A local Facebook group for the HOA started circulating a heavily edited video. I recognized it immediately. It was my own footage, or rather fragments of it. The video showed me confronting the 3 inspectors near the garage, but all the audio was stripped out except a single clip, looped dramatically. If you come back again, there will be consequences. There was no context, no explanation, no lead up. Just me, looking like a lunatic in cargo boots, supposedly threatening 3 defenseless men. It went semi-viral, at least by Pine Shadow standards. Comments lit up. Is this the same guy with the giant satellite dishes? I heard he used to be military. He's got weapons in there, guaranteed. What if there are kids nearby? I recognized a few of the commenters, people I used to nod to at the gas station. I spent hours trying to trace the original uploader. The account was new, no friends, no profile pic. But the metadata on the upload betrayed a familiar pattern. It had been posted using a proxy service that, when cracked open, linked back to a college dorm IP. Specifically, CSU Pueblo, and wouldn't you know it, Karen's son Tyler happened to be enrolled there, studying marketing. Of course, I didn't act yet, not fully. I wanted the full picture, so I kept watching, logging, mapping. And then one night, around 2 a.m., my motion alarm chirped. I checked the camera feed, expecting a deer or maybe a coyote. Instead, I saw 2 figures creeping near my back fence, installing something small on a tree facing the garage. By morning, it was gone, but the impression in the dirt remained. So, did the zip tie around the trunk. I found the device later tossed clumsily into a neighbor's compost bin, cheap motion cam, battery-powered, data storage wiped, but I didn't need the footage. I had fingerprints. Karen hadn't just doubled down. She'd declared war. You can only let someone poke the bear so many times before the bear starts checking the return address. Karen had pushed this game into digital territory. That was her first mistake. Because while she was busy playing HOA Power Princess and outsourcing her harassment to bored college kids, I had something she didn't. a decade of experience in infrastructure security and digital forensics, and the patience of a man who once debugged a failing citywide emergency network at 3 in the morning with no coffee. I started by isolating the origin points of every suspicious upload and social media post. Most of them were routed through basic VPN services, cheap, fast, and popular with teenagers who think incognito mode makes them hackers. They weren't even using randomized time delays. Rookie mistakes. The Facebook video that had made the rounds? Traced to an IP in the dorms of CSU Pueblo. A few emails tied to the fake concerned neighbor address linked to a Gmail account that was recovered just long enough for Google to log a device ID. A Samsung phone registered to one Tyler Litton, Karen's kid, studying digital marketing. Probably thought he was helping mommy win a neighborhood turf war. Another cluster of suspicious comments and fake HOA supporting posts came from a proxy chain originating in Phoenix. I dug deeper and cross-referenced known user behaviors. One name popped out, Dennis K. McAllister, former general contractor for Pine Shadows Village. The same guy who mysteriously disappeared from the project books right after a tax audit was opened in 2021. Karen had vouched for him, claimed he was misunderstood. 2 suspects, 1 network. Time to build a case. I ran everything through a custom script I wrote years ago to detect social engineering attempts, correlated timestamps, content patterns, meta fingerprints. The result? A tidy cluster of fake accounts, burner numbers, and overlapping activity windows. But it wasn't enough to know who. I needed to prove intent, so I went deeper. I pulled packet logs from my firewall, going back 6 months. Traced outbound pings from the rogue drone, cross-referenced those with device IDs scraped from nearby Wi-Fi signals during the hours of operation. That's when I hit gold. One of the drones had pinged a specific open hotspot during its second flyover. That hotspot registered to a Wi-Fi extender named PSVHOA, logged in automatically from a device labeled Karen L. Mobile. Bingo. At this point, I wasn't just dealing with an obsessive HOA president and her idiot son. This was a coordinated effort to smear, harass, and digitally stalk a private citizen using falsified evidence and illicit surveillance. So I called in a favor. A former colleague of mine, FBI Cyber Division, now semi-retired, agreed to take a look. I gave him a sanitized packet of evidence. No names, no context, just data. His response came within 24 hours. "This is a harassment campaign," he said. "And whoever's behind it is sloppy. But you've got one interesting thread here. The CSU dorm upload passed through a misconfigured proxy that bounced through a subcontracted server from the Bureau of Civic Data Access." I blinked. Federal? Yeah, someone tried to anonymize themselves through a public proxy node that happened to piggyback off a .gov endpoint. That's a violation of federal network policy. Triggers an auto report. He paused. This might have just tripped something bigger. And just like that, things went from HOA drama to federal attention. My friend handed off the evidence chain to a contact inside the local cybercrime task force. Officially, it was now being reviewed for potential violations of federal wire fraud statutes and unlawful surveillance. Unofficially, Karen had no idea that her "get him with social media" plan had touched a government system. I wasn't finished. I compiled everything. Logs, screenshots, timestamps, drone footage, the fake blog, the flyers, the physical surveillance footage, even a copy of the camera we recovered from the compost bin. I included financial links, a payment from Karen's personal HOA expense card to a social media marketing firm in Arizona, where McAllister had recently re-registered his business under his wife's name. When the report was ready, I filed it with the district attorney's office. I didn't need to win in the court of public opinion. I was aiming for criminal court now. I didn't hear about the subpoenas until the next morning. Apparently, the cybercrime task force moved faster than expected once the federal thread got pulled. A knock on Karen's door at 6 a.m. A forensics team at her home office before sunrise. Neighbors caught glimpses of dark SUVs and gloved agents carrying sealed containers out of her garage. I didn't need to see it. The HOA Facebook group lit up like a Christmas tree. Does anyone know what's happening at Karen's house? I saw 2 men in FBI jackets. This is serious. Are we in danger? By noon, the HOA board was in full panic mode. An emergency meeting was called. Closed doors. Invite only. Except someone inside, bless their rebellious little heart, decided enough was enough. An audio recording of that meeting landed in my inbox by dinner time. I played it on loop. Karen's voice was calm, but brittle. You could hear the varnish cracking. I never authorized anything illegal. The consultants I hired were given public footage only. This is being blown out of proportion by a disgruntled landowner who's trying to discredit this board. Then came the voice of Raymond Brewer, the HOA treasurer. Older guy, retired architect. Liked by everyone because he kept the budget honest and the landscaping simple. Karen, you told us these people were just gathering documentation, that we had legal standing to investigate safety issues, but you never disclosed any drones. You never said your son was involved, and now we're under federal scrutiny. My name is on those expense reports. Another board member chimed in. Elena Marquez, head of community events. You made us sign off on that community engagement fund without explaining where the $5,000 went. Was that for the smear campaign? Karen tried to brush it off. I was protecting the community. You were protecting your ego, Brewer snapped. You've cost this HOA more in legal fees than we spend on infrastructure. And now I'm supposed to explain to residents why their dues are being used to fight criminal allegations. Silence. Then a quiet, deadly phrase from Elena. I moved to open a vote of no confidence. The recording ended there, but the fallout didn't. By the end of the week, a formal petition had circulated through Pine Shadows. Over half the HOA residents signed it. The document called for Karen's immediate suspension as president pending investigation, the full disclosure of board expenditures for the last 2 fiscal years, and an independent audit. Karen tried to fight it, claimed the petition was invalid, that agitators were spreading misinformation. She even emailed a 30-paragraph screed to every resident, complete with screenshots, legal threats, and one oddly specific reference to foreign cyber manipulation. It only made things worse. A reporter from the local paper picked up the story, then a regional blogger. The headline was almost too perfect. HOA president accused of orchestrating cyber harassment campaign against private citizen, FBI involved. Soon people from outside Pine Shadows started showing up at HOA meetings. Legal observers, land rights activists. One man from New Mexico even offered to set up a live stream. This could set precedent, he said. The overreach of private governance systems has gone unchecked too long. For the first time since this began, Karen stopped showing up to meetings. That didn't stop the prosecutors. I was called to give an extended statement under oath. I turned over everything. Data logs, timelines, digital trails, even the anonymous mailer envelopes I'd saved. The DA's office moved quickly, likely to keep the feds from scooping the entire case. A grand jury was assembled. Subpoenas flew. And I got word that Tyler, Karen's golden child, had been offered a deal. Testify, hand over devices, and walk away clean. Last I heard, he folded in under 24 hours. It was the HOA's turn to fracture now. Half the board members resigned. The rest distanced themselves like rats scrambling from a burning Lexus. What started as a local turf war had now cracked open a whole system. The courtroom felt colder this time, not physically. Air conditioning was working fine, but in tone, in tension, in the way Karen wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. She sat flanked by 2 lawyers this time, not one. Her trademark blazer was gone, replaced by something beige, professional, forgettable. Like her PR team had decided the mom trying her best look might soften the damage. It didn't. This wasn't just civil court now. This was federal district court. The charges had stacked: unlawful surveillance, cyber harassment, coordination of a disinformation campaign, misuse of HOA funds, conspiracy to commit digital defamation, and one especially ugly count of unauthorized access to protected systems, though one tied to the proxy node that brushed against a government data server. The courtroom wasn't just filled with HOA residents now. Reporters lined the back row. 2 bloggers live-tweeted from laptops. A landowner's rights advocate sat behind me, whispering updates to someone via earpiece. Hell, even a couple of real estate lawyers showed up from Denver, hoping to observe what had become the most notorious HOA case in Colorado since the 90s. My attorney opened with facts. She walked the court through the digital trail, Tyler's upload logs, the payments to the Arizona media firm, the connection between Karen's HOA card and the burner campaign. She introduced the email that linked Karen to Dennis McAllister, who had quietly deleted his entire online presence a week before the trial began. Then came the drone footage, the raw, unedited kind. The judge watched in silence as my overhead cam captured the fake Inspectors breaking into my garage. The laughter, the crowbar, the panicked flailing when I pulled up in my truck. Karen's lawyer objected. Your Honor, the defense maintains this footage was obtained through unregulated private surveillance. The judge shut it down. Save it for cross. Then came the real nail. An FBI digital forensics agent took the stand. Calm, precise. He explained how one of the IPs involved in uploading the smear video passed through a proxy server operated by a federal data subcontractor, how that ping triggered a security alert, how that alert led back to Tyler Litton's device, and how Tyler, upon being confronted, voluntarily surrendered his phone and email access, revealing an entire thread of messages between himself and Karen. Printed copies were submitted into evidence. In one of them, Karen wrote, "He's dangerous. He doesn't belong in this community. I don't care what it takes. Just make people scared of him. Spin it." That was the moment everything shifted. Karen stopped fidgeting. Her lawyers stopped whispering. The jury, mostly working-class men and women from Pueblo County, just stared. Not angry, not shocked, just tired of her. The prosecution wrapped with a closing that didn't need theatrics. This case isn't about a property line. It's not about drones or zoning or whether someone's workshop matches the community aesthetic. This is about what happens when private power tries to override public law. When a person weaponizes influence to destroy someone for not playing along. Karen's defense tried to pivot to mental health, to stress, to confusion about legal boundaries, but no one was buying it. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty on multiple counts, civil damages confirmed, criminal liability affirmed. Karen Litton was sentenced to 18 months probation, banned from holding any administrative position in any HOA or corporate board for 5 years, and ordered to pay $120,000 in damages, split between reputational harm, cost of counter-surveillance, and legal fees. And, as ordered by Judge Dwyer, she had to issue a public video apology to be posted on the Pine Shadows website for a minimum of 90 days. The best part? The board voted the same evening to permanently remove her from the HOA. They held the vote in the courtroom hallway, 10-0. She was done. 1 year later, the property feels quieter than ever. Not just because the lawsuits are over or because Karen's Lexus no longer hovers near the entrance of Pine Shadows like a shark with Bluetooth, but because the tension in the air has finally lifted. There's no HOA mail in my box anymore, no anonymous flyers, no mystery drones tracing arcs above my garage, just pine, dirt, wind, and silence. Exactly how I built it. The garage, my shop, my fortress, my bunker of code and steel now has new upgrades. A second layer of thermal cameras, new server firewalls, upgraded license for perimeter security, and a motion-activated speaker system that plays Beethoven's Ode to Joy anytime someone gets too close to the fence line without clearance. My little joke. But the best upgrade, a polished black and gold sign bolted into the outer gate. Curious what's in my garage? File an official request, or ask Karen's lawyer. The neighborhood, surprisingly, survived the scandal. Pine Shadows Village went through a bit of a reckoning. After Karen was stripped of her title and sentenced, the board reorganized. Raymond Brewer was voted in as interim president, and to his credit, he pushed hard for transparency. The first thing they did, publish every past financial record from the last 5 years. Residents were stunned at how much had been misused or misallocated. Legal fees hidden as community outreach. Drone purchases disguised as infrastructure assessments. A marketing payment to the Arizona company that had no official record in HOA business. The very firm that built the smear campaign. Reform came hard and fast. New bylaws were ratified. Annual votes were made mandatory. No more unilateral power from the president's chair. Even more shocking, I was invited to speak, not at a meeting, at a forum, on property rights, on overreach, on protecting yourself from bad actors in seemingly civil communities. I wore jeans, a clean shirt, and told the whole story. From the crowbar, to the fake inspection, to the courtroom where Karen's voice cracked, trying to explain why she had weaponized her own son. People listened, and I kept talking. That's how the podcast started. Off the Grid, Stories of Property War and HOA Madness. The first 3 episodes were just me recounting my case. Then came emails, messages, calls. A woman from Arizona whose HOA tried to ban her from using drought-resistant plants. A man in Oregon who got sued for painting his garage the wrong shade of beige. Every week, a new tale of suburban nonsense, each one somehow more surreal than the last. By the end of the first quarter, we were in the top 10 legal podcasts on Apple. Then Spotify featured us. Sponsors came knocking. A lawyer in Texas offered to help me create a homeowner defense toolkit. We sold out in 4 days. I never expected to be the face of private property resistance. I'm a systems guy. I build things. I like cables and silence and not having to explain myself to entitled sociopaths with HOA letterhead. But if this circus taught me anything, it's that staying quiet only works until someone decides your silence makes you a target. So I talk now. I tell the stories. And every so often, I'll get an email or a comment that says something like, "I didn't know I could push back. I thought I had to obey." That's when I know it's worth it. Karen, last I heard, she moved to Arizona. No HOAs, no public positions. Her real estate license expired. Her son dropped out and started a landscaping business. Fitting. Funny enough, he actually messaged me, apologized, said he'd been trying to impress her, said he didn't really get it until he watched the court footage and heard her say my name like it was a disease. I didn't reply. Sometimes closure isn't a door you open, it's the lock you change.